the minimum, right? The first time I watched Death Note, I was 15 years old. I ended up watching 10 minutes of it again. After immersing myself in psychology for 6 years, my perception of the anime has completely changed. I'm Raphael. I have a degree in psychology, and I enjoy discussing Death Note. So, let's delve into the mind of one of the greatest protagonists in anime history, Light Yagami. When I first watched Death Note, I was 15 and had just finished high school. When I saw the concept of Light Yagami as Kira, I thought, wow, what he's saying makes sense. But why does this destabilize our morals and ethics? He is a handsome and intelligent young man, one of the top students in Japan, who had even assisted the police in some cases due to his intelligence. This may have contributed to his view of justice. Despite all this, his life was boring. It was at this moment that he finds a notebook, the infamous Death Note. You can write the name of any person in it, and that person will die. Initially, you might be skeptical, but he takes the notebook, and this raises a significant philosophical question. He decides to test it on criminals, people he believes wouldn't be missed by humanity. He tries it once, thinks it's a coincidence, tests it a second time, and when he confirms it, he realizes he has just signed the death warrants of 2 people. Thus, his main goal was to save humanity or rid it of criminals. The first time I watched the anime, I agreed with this. I thought, indeed, if we eliminated all the criminals in the world, crime would cease to exist. Essentially, this happens in Death Note. Crime rates begin to decline. He starts to meet people who have been victims of crime. Whenever I saw news about crime or someone in a vulnerable situation, I felt a mix of anger and fear. This evokes a blend of emotions in us. Anger mixed with the fear that I don't want to go through what no one in my family has experienced. This feeling was common among teenagers who shared the same perspective. I wanted to seek justice and believed it was truly possible. Light Yagami himself questions this. Many criticize, with that notebook, I would do the same, but they would never admit it. He makes us wonder what we would do if we found that notebook. Light is incredibly intelligent and studious, and he has never committed any crimes. All he wants to do with the notebook is achieve social justice. But what kind of justice involves killing people? In essence, the philosophy is, a good criminal is a dead criminal. It's funny how few people think this way today. However, between the focus on the story and the second episode, where he confronts L, he may feel challenged. This brings up his psychological issue. He feels challenged, and at that moment breaks the law he established. He kills what is technically an innocent detective. In fact, L was not after a criminal. The big question is that they both claim to be justice at the same time. L, the greatest detective in the world, just as intelligent as Light, and the camera captures it all. At the end of the episode, both declare themselves justice at the very moment they are each responsible for a death simultaneously. And the people I posted about writing that guy's name in the notebook, the heliport is expelled. Even if the person wasn't sure they would die, there was a significant chance that it would happen. Additionally, he targeted a prisoner who was set to be executed that same day, but he still played a part in that person's death. What was the author trying to convey in that scene, and what will happen in the future? He will kill those who stand in his way. They want to catch him. In other words, he will also kill innocents. Light will specifically say this. You concentrate power and decision-making in the hands of smaller groups, or, worse, in the hands of a single person, as is the case with him. Thus, justice itself is flawed, even with a large number of people judging that case. Now, just imagine how flawed one person can be. A person has desires and emotions, and this is what Light will criticize about taking justice into one's own hands. Light Yagami will defend this concept of justice until the very last episode. He genuinely believes he is the savior of this world, and no matter how much his viewpoint is the most highlighted, whether you want to or not, you tend to agree with or relativize his actions. How does he manipulate people in the anime? He manipulates the viewers as well. Watching for the first time, I found myself defending and organizing his actions. I thought, why doesn't justice do this? And felt that L and the task force were hindering Light from achieving justice. That was my perspective at the time. However, the second time I watched it, everything changed. But let's walk in his shoes for a moment. Initially, his goal was to kill criminals. Then he starts killing innocents. But to him, the innocents are seen differently. For instance, in Naomi's case, he kills a man, but theoretically, it's a form of self-defense. And if he were to die, then theoretically, it would be legitimate self-defense. It's bizarre because indirectly, those people would cause his death, which would probably lead to a life sentence or even the death penalty. And in his belief that he is justice, he thought that anyone interfering in that was acting against justice. Upon watching it for the second time, I realized that he has narcissistic personality disorder. There's a lot of talk about him being a psychopath, but I don't lean too much in that direction, because a narcissist needs to be adored and recognized. Traits that a psychopath who suffers from antisocial personality disorder does not necessarily possess. A person can be a psychopath and not be narcissistic at the same time. One doesn't rule out the other. Light also lacks a history of aggression or delinquency in his childhood or adolescence. And despite Light showing little empathy, especially toward his family, when he doesn't have the notebook, he finds himself in a difficult situation. The notebook amplifies what he already has. It grants power to someone who already had tendencies to be corrupted by that power. The saying, "To truly know someone, you must give them power," captures this perfectly. Light already had a sense of vanity, stemming from being the top student, and the notebook amplifies this, adding a new dimension to his narcissism, believing he will save the world. There's even a saying on Instagram that resembles a phrase from the ENM exam. He states that it's impossible to change the world alone, and that's the beauty of the world. You cannot completely change the world. You lack the power to do so. Even L mentions that the desire to modify the world is a childish, adolescent wish. Watching it for the second time, I realized that he had a greater sense of maturity because he acknowledged that he couldn't change the world. This made me question whether he really wanted to modify the world. When he meets Misa, the second person with a death note, he doesn't try to ally with her. Instead, he wants to eliminate her. He wants to kill her. He doesn't think, "Wow, now's my chance to save humanity from criminals." Sometimes he seems reminiscent of Uchiha Madara. Both shared the same goal of wanting to change the world to fit their vision. Light always claimed he had public opinion on his side. If we look at surveys about the death penalty here in Brazil, at least 50% of people support it. His narcissism drives his desire for justice and his ambition to be the god of the new world. Not to mention that he was extremely intelligent. He defeated 2 of the 3 greatest minds in the world. Of course, it's difficult to compare Light's intelligence when L had something almost supernatural on his side. I found myself quite anxious, thinking about how L would uncover the truth. Hello, everyone. There's a tool that breaks all the laws of the universe. That's why, for me, L is an unmatched character. American psychologist Leon Festinger identified what he called cognitive dissonance in 1957, which is basically a contradiction between the way an individual thinks and how they behave. Light believes he wants justice and to kill criminals, yet he begins to kill innocent people. He swore and condemned to death those who murdered, but he also killed during his reign. We criticize politicians during elections while simultaneously engaging in antics to protect and defend them. Look at how complex human beings are. In front of the screen, you wonder, is he really crying out of sadness, as it appears? Yet at the same time, he wants to know the name of the dying person. When Light is near death at the end, he observes and is observed by L. As a student who hadn't yet come into contact with the notebook, what could his life have been like? A blocker said that if Light hadn't found the notebook, he would have made a great police officer. So, observe how circumstances can sometimes change us. Death Note is a unique story, and so is Light Yagami. Thank you, everyone, for the 2,000 subscribers. We started the year strong, and if you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel. For those who are already here, you're helping this channel grow.